This is a very old traditional song. In yeshiva, I grew up hearing this song every year at this month. And by this month, I mean the month of Ellul, which begins at the new moon in Virgo. So it's not always the same date on the secular calendar. But this new moon in Virgo that we're in right now is the beginning of the month of Ellul. The month of Ellul, being a Virgo month, is a powerful month. It's the month where traditionally you're working on yourself. You're taking deep inventory. You're healing, you're correcting, you're cleaning up your act. And there's a great emphasis in the Jewish tradition that this month is just a powerful and healing month. And there's a song that's sung before this month, and there's a song that's sung once this month comes, and it's the same song. The words are, Ellul higia, Ellul is coming, Yachzor b'tshuva, go back and do repentance, or teshuva means returning, come and return. Kulam tzrichem, we all need to do teshuva, we all need to return. And then when Elul comes, the song is, Elul has arrived, Yachzor b'tshuva kulam tzrichem, come back to teshuva, we all need. So we'll sing that song. Ellul mangia, Ellul higia, Yachzor b'tshuva, kulam tzrichim. Ellul higia, Ellul higia, Yachzor b'tshuva, kulam tzrichim. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ellul higia, Ellul higia, Yachzor b'tshuva, kulam tzarichin. Ellul higia, Ellul higia, Yachzor b'tshuva, kulam tzarichin. So in this month's soul gathering, I want to speak about Ellul, Virgo, Teshuvah, share some prayerful reflections that are alive, and to speak to what I feel is also alive in the times right now. In general, Virgo is one of those archetypes that I love speaking about, probably because Virgo, of all the signs in the natal chart, it's about an active, ongoing process of self-correction. And in the patriarchal conditioning of the world that we're living in, it's probably one of the most confused of the archetypes. And so much of this relates to the Judeo-Christian influence as it relates to ideas of perfection, of sin and purity. Something that we do during Virgo, and what really this month of Ellul is all about, is an ongoing process of self-correction. One of my first teachers, Adam Ginsburg, spoke about Virgo as self-accuracy. But let's really speak about what this means. As an earth sign, we always recognize that the higher meaning of the earth archetype is never about some sort of concrete achievement or finality in form, because the earth itself is impermanent, and all things physical, all things that manifest in body, in time, in space, that which has definition, that which is tangible, is actually some of the most impermanent, unreal facets of reality, in the sense that it seems very solid and concrete, and to the senses, to the mind that's so conditioned by that which it can see and touch and smell, it seems like these are the most real things. But to the spirit, which is infinite and eternal and all-powerful, yet to the senses can even be seen to not exist, right? It's invisible. It can easily be missed. To the spirit, these things of form are actually just like the tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg of existence. It's just like the most external symbol of totality. It hardly represents all that is. And a big part of what we're doing with the earth signs in general is coming into right relationship to the physical facets of our human life with respect to the spirit that we are. And thus one of the challenges with the earth signs in general is becoming overly defined, overly conditioned, overly identified by the physical reality, where it becomes a means unto itself. It becomes a purpose unto itself. And when we become overly defined or identified with physical reality, we create in that instance the almost the counterpoint to that construct, which is the avoidance and the neglect, the disrespect or the non-appreciation of physical reality, that which we've given a lot of meaning to, that which we've ascribed as being important or ultimately meaningful, at some point will manifest as that which we're going to avoid or neglect because it, in our minds, has so much more significant than it actually is. Both of those miss what we can call right relationship. It is not disregarding and dishonoring the body, because that itself is a mistake. We only think we need to disregard and dishonor and neglect or punish the physical world if at some point we've begun to think it has more meaning than it actually is, if we've become identified with it in a way that is unreal and illusory. But coming into right relationship is recognizing, how do the total parameters of our earthly physical experience serve for our spiritual evolution, the wholeness of what we are this lifetime? And everything in this life is so short, seemingly so important and so real and so imminent in the moment, but so incredibly temporary, so fleeting. Maybe we'll dance with certain experiences for months or years at a time, or our body for a lifetime, but it's so incredibly fleeting. And in the scope of eternity, this is like nothing. When we have a deeper appreciation of eternity, of what really life is, what reality actually is, we start to cultivate within our own path, within our heart space, more of an appreciation and a gratitude and an openness and a humility and a willingness to face the facets of our physical reality with a true quality of readiness to do the work that is necessary. And so a respecting of the parameters of our physical life, not giving it more meaning than it has, but not avoiding it or denying it or negating it. And in Virgo, we look no further than simply what's in your life. Are you eating? If yes, turn to page 32. On page 32 comes with all of the dishes, the dental requirements, the grooming needs, and the cleaning things, and the cleaning instruments, and the kitchens, and the sinks, and the stovetop. That simply comes with eating, right? Are you eating? If no, turn to some other page and you have a different kind of experience. I mean, you don't have to eat necessarily. There are people on this planet that don't have the otherwise assumed physical human needs that we just expect to be this. But it's almost like 100% of the case true, but probably 99 point whatever case true, that coming into a body has generally, in like almost all cases, certain implications. And that will include diet, that will include body, that will include grooming, that will include dental health, that will include some awareness of financial responsibilities or attunement to what do I need in order to survive. Basic food, water, shelter. And where there's food, water, shelter, there's the management of those resources. And this is like really where Virgo comes in. Anything that's a part of our life requires some level of management and upkeep, conscious attention to it. but we also appreciate all of this, all these facets of our human life. They're not defining who we are. They're not eternal. They will change as our evolutionary curriculum changes, as our soul curriculum changes. They will absolutely change just as much as we'll come to a point where the need for these physical experiences themselves will become obsolete. There's nothing about this human life, this human reality, that isn't ultimately the template for our remembering, for our learning. Cultivating that perspective is such a powerful process. When I'm challenged, and I'm challenged frequently, and I find myself coming out of alignment frequently and forgetting frequently and allowing stress to overtake my mind, I am learning to repeat inside of my mind. I've been doing this a lot recently, something that I was given in a dream a few months ago or so. And this dream message, I've shared this before, but it's so beautiful. It's like, it's so grounding for me to remember this. And the dream message is, every experience offers another angle through which to experience the unity of God's will. Every experience offers another angle through which to experience the unity of God's will. Every experience does not serve any other purpose than offering another angle, another avenue through which to experience the truth. It's working with my mind from another perspective, from another vantage point, meeting my beliefs, my ideas, my points of resistance, and offering me the same teaching yet again. I've been repeating that actually inside of my mind many, many times. And that just becomes a reminder that I may stay soft now. I may stay relaxed. I may stay in a space of allowing and sincere openness for the teaching, sincere openness to heal, sincere openness for learning, sincere openness to find out what the unity of God's will is. When we speak about the unity of God's will, it points to the fact that there is a singularity to life, and that the seeming problems and tensions that arise in life are not more powerful than the truth. They're actually just pointing us back to the correction that we're called to make in our own minds, in our own thinking. That every experience at the core of it, in its highest understanding, is for our benefit, is for our own healing. Now let's take all of these really beautiful and lovely reflections and take it to the knit and the grid of Virgo. One of the deepest places of confusion within the Virgo archetype are these notions of impurity. And this is where we oftentimes take the idea of mistake, and we say, you've made a mistake, or you've done something wrong. And mistakes become almost like their own entity unto itself. We can understand this very much with Capricorn as well. Right? The duality between right and wrong, where there's right and there's wrong, and then wrong is its own entity, equal to and opposite that which is right. But really, there's just right. There's just alignment. There's just truth. And a mistake is a missing of it. Right? The original meaning of sin is really just missing the mark. Like, it's a whoops. Like, oh, whoops, I missed that one. Which really means you had a thought that wasn't true and you believed it. And that's it. And then you acted on it, or even if you didn't act on it. There's no original quality or meaning or value to a sin, to a mistake, other than, oh, I forgot. I believed in something that wasn't true. Which means right, truth, alignment is the only reality. And the journey of self-correction is just remembering that. What's happened within our patriarchal conditioning is we've begun to look at mistakes as an entity unto itself, deserving some kind of atonement, where we have to hurt ourselves, we have to punish, we have to suffer to undo the negative effects of the things that we've done to ourselves. And that quality of masochism manifests everywhere. Right? We know it's very common in more traditional religious notions, right? Where we're atoning for something, you're purifying, you got to suffer, you got to endure pain. But we even see that in spiritual ways of thinking. enduring something difficult for a long time, because that will elicit some kind of spiritual purification. Notions of purification that are not about mental correction are just ways of alleviating a sense of guilt without actually looking at the mistake. We have this sense of guilt for being out of alignment. I'm going to suffer, so I'll feel better about myself. I've suffered, I've done something wrong, or I've hurt someone else. So I'm going to suffer to kind of equalize it. It doesn't actually address the mistake. It might make a certain personality structure that's maybe more nimble, right? More quiet, more internal, more cautious, but it doesn't actually address the correction. One of the teachings in A Course in Miracles, which again is one of those deeply beautiful teachings, we're not responsible for the error. We're responsible to accept the correction, to accept the solution. We don't even need to we don't even need to figure out the solution. The solution is. The solution is the truth. It's not something to create or determine. Right? We don't have to figure it out. It is. Our work is bringing our mind into resonance with it. This is becoming a true apprentice to the truth. Virgo is about the apprenticeship. And if we understand from a spiritual perspective the deeper dimension of the Virgo archetype, is we're just facing the curriculum of our life as an opportunity for ongoing self-correction. And that's, in my perception, my perspective, the deeper definition of karma yoga, where it's a mental purification through service. Whatever we're doing, we're learning how to actually purify our own minds. We're learning how to work out our own thoughts. So when we're just walking this path of self-lashes, I mean, a lot of souls with strong Virgo, oftentimes the Pluto and Virgo generation, I often intuit that these souls have had really strong medieval lifetimes in Judeo-Christian church kinds of environments where, many souls during that time just experienced the worst of the worst in terms of spiritual atonement and suffering, and lots of sadism and lots of masochism during that time, where there's a sense of, I've acted wrong, I've made mistakes, I'm impure, I've had these desires that have gotten entangled and messy, and I've done all these things that have really brought my mind far from the purity of my true being. I've done things and I've said things that are hurtful. I have hurt my brother and my sister. I have done things that are hurtful and unloving. So I'm going to suffer for that. I deserve to suffer. And that is no different. Jeff Green beautifully points out that Virgo is both sadism and masochism. We have within the archetype just as equally. You've made me hurt. You've hurt me. Now you need to suffer. You need to apologize. You need to experience the consequences of all the pain that you've inflicted. It's no different than, I'm bad, I'm wrong, I need to live in an apologetic state of mind and be undeserving of joy. I have to suffer for a while because I've done such bad things. It's really the difference between there's something wrong with me and it's my fault, versus there's something wrong with me and it's your fault. Both perspectives are contained within that Virgo archetype, and they're both incorrect. They both resonate with that paradigm of mistakes being a big deal, and that further worldly efforts and toil and hardship and suffering and pain is required for the undoing of such mistakes. This is why a big part of the work within Virgo is this idea of doing the work you need to do. And oftentimes we'll procrastinate doing that work. And often why is because to do the work will bring up the possibility that we'll make the same mistakes again. And we don't want to make mistakes, or we'll feel unready or unkempt or unfit. But really the true healing happens when we come back to our work, when we come back to facing the curriculum of our life, and we just do better this time. And it's a very forgiving and loving return to the present moment that says, great, you believe something that wasn't true, you see it, and the guilt that you feel is actually very natural. Learn from it by seeing where the mistake was and allowing that to really heal you so you can do better next time. When we avoid addressing the content of our life and doing the work we are here to do, be it our job or our health or a relationship, wherever the mistakes are, we don't really allow ourselves to learn. And so there's so much beauty in Virgo. This is where Virgo is about mastery. It's not mastery really in any particular thing, because every technique can be further mastered. There's no, like, in the truest sense of the word, there's no master astrologer, right? There's no master meditator. There's no master of anything, because everything can further be improved upon. That's the nature of Virgo. That's why we really want to make sure we're not getting so hooked on some kind of physical notion of perfection. But the true mastery is a way of being where we are learning how to return to the path with grace, with humility, with openness, with willingness. The mastery is a growing capacity to remain unfazed, to stay regulated, to stay grounded and faithful and trusting, even as little snafus come up. Mistakes, either your mistakes or other people's mistakes, right? The moment we lose our peace, that's our mistake. And that's where we have the opportunity to really see where we believe something untrue. Now, Virgo Pisces polarity teaches us all about that. Of course, Pisces at the core is about faith, unconditional trust in God, in Creator, in Source, in truth, in love. Bringing that out within Virgo is to realize, yes, there's work to do. There's a physical, earthly life curriculum that requires your maintenance and your effort, and show up for it. But allow all of it to be a spiritual purification wherein we are strengthening our love, we are strengthening our devotion. So the month of Ellul in the Jewish tradition is really all about this correction time. It's oftentimes mistakenly understood as, and almost like healing is often taken in Judeo-Christian traditional ways of thinking as a quantitative thing, right? You know, you do vidoi these many times. You pray and you hit your chest, and you swing the chicken around your head. You give charity. Like, these things that you do will alleviate. Again, these things only alleviate guilt. Like, there's guilt, and then it helps the mind to, like, deal with the discomfort of feeling guilty, but it doesn't address the correction. That's where in the prophets, I think it was in maybe Yirmiyahu or Yeshayahu, either Isaiah or Jeremiah, I forgot, but this is me from high school. Something about him saying, your fast, I'm sure Jesus said this too, your fasts mean nothing. Now, at the same time, I've had the experience of fasting, of physical practices as being profoundly healing. And it could be if it takes us to our mind. That's the point of all these physical practices. Even swinging a chicken above your head, which is a thing. All of these practices can bring us to our own mind if they're done with correct attitude. Otherwise, they're just empty rituals that alleviate a sense of guilt and make us think we've done what we need to do. And so we won't be punished by some idea of a God in the sky, definitely a male, that's angry at us. But these practices of the body, of form, of things, rituals, if they're done with the correct attitude, the right way of seeing them, and all these different religions and spiritualities, and there are so many traditions and practices. I remember spending time at a Taoist temple a few years ago, and they're the most beautiful, beautiful rituals. Deeply appeals to me, just the aesthetics and the beauty and the grace of these rituals. And I'm certain, without a doubt, that there are many people who are practitioners of that way that also regard those rituals and practices in the same way that I'm speaking to Judeo-Christian practices. There's even a teaching in the Tao Te Ching that when the Tao is lost, there is ritual, right? When rich or something like when the Tao is lost, there is, and I don't know the order, but it's like Tao is lost, then there are like ethics and rituals. When that is lost, there are moralities of right and wrong. Like life becomes more and more binary and two-dimensional, and like, don't do this or you're breaking the law. And it's so far removed from direct understanding. Like, so really the rituals don't have meaning, but they're just a vehicle, a gateway, an instrument, a bridge for the mind, right? For us to come back to correct thinking. In true communion, we don't need the rituals. You don't need those things. It's in its highest form. That's what the Buddha statue is all about. You light the candle. That's what the candle is for. It could also be a very nice way of feeling tidy and organized and doing the practice right according to the book, according to the teaching. And that's nice. It might feel relaxing, but we don't want to miss how all of these physical apparatuses are just a way of us creating a bridge to come back to ourselves. All the rituals of the high holidays and Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and the Aseret Yimei Teshuvah, which are these 10 days of repentance. So after the month of Ellul, we begin Tishrei, which is Libra. Rosh Hashanah begins Rosh Chodesh Tishrei, the beginning of that month. 10 days later, we have Yom Kippur. All of Ellul is preparing us for these holidays that happen in the first 10 days of Tishrei. The whole month of Ellul is devoted. It's almost like saying the entirety of the 6th house is preparing you to get above the horizon into the 7th. It's preparing us to exist in social reality, to purify our mind so that we're not just in this like refined state. I always give this example of sharpening the pencil endlessly so it's a perfect point. No, so you can also use the pencil, engage in the world, be in this life, engage in relationships, walk a holy path with those who are with those around you, walk your purpose. There's a lot of here I am as an equal being in life, living a life of purpose and meaning. So in the Jewish tradition, all this is happening during the month of Ellul. And I just want to offer that perspective that as we're, in this process of Virgo, this new moon in Virgo, and I'll speak in a moment to Mars and all these amazing things that are happening during this new moon, we really give ourselves the opportunity to look at where's the true healing happening. Are we needing to inflict, or are we believing that we need to endure some level of discomfort and suffering and pain? Where do we feel like we've just sort of accustomed ourselves to a state of dysfunction? It is not our deserving, according to our holy nature, to live in that way. It's always an opportunity to come back to our own thinking and where there's an invitation for correction and healing. So I speak about the idea of teshuvah, which is a big theme during the high holidays. Teshuvah translated as repentance, but the word teshuvah, the root is shuv. Shabbat or lashevet share the same words. Shabbat is the Sabbath, the 7th day of the week. We're in it right now. That's the day of rest. Lashevet actually means to sit. So it's meaningful. The word for repentance shares the root word with Sabbath, with sitting. Shuv is also return. They all share the same essence. You're resting, you're sitting, you're relaxing, you're returning. It's a beautiful word to meditate upon. Like repentance being nothing other than a state of returning, which is also synonymous with resting. Traditionally, I used to keep the Sabbath without the same beliefs in Orthodox Judaism, which, it's like the Saturn external rules enforcing you, right, according to some kind of belief system. There's a sort of peace in it, right? Because there's a time in my life where on Shabbos, on Sabbath, no traveling, no electricity, no television, no turning on the lights even. just prayer and sleep and rest and meals. And it's beautiful, and it's something that I endeavor to integrate in my life more as a way of being. But I observe, without the external Saturn rules that say this is the right way to behave, this is how you're supposed to do it, otherwise you're not a part of the community, you're not a part of the group, it's harder often for human beings to apply that level of self-discipline to do healthy things. But it's also, that's where the true soul sovereignty comes from. This is actually a meaningful thing to reflect upon. Saturn moving retrograde, squaring Uranus. In so many ways, the times right now are asking us to cultivate our alignment, not because someone's asking us to, not because there's some sort of religion or community or rule or teacher or authority figure saying, do these things. What is it like for us to really, through wisdom, understand this is where I need discipline. This is where I need to show up better for myself and create the structural realities for myself that really nurture my true spiritual growth. I think that's something that we're all learning how to do as we free ourselves from being defined by external authority. Our own awakening cannot be entirely, we can't arrive there if on some level we're looking outside of ourselves for someone to say, you're doing a good job. Ultimately, this needs to come from within ourselves. This is a Saturn teaching, and it connects to Virgo, the trine between Capricorn and Virgo. Because ultimately within Virgo, it says every day there are things to do. And it's up to us to figure that out. When it comes to the path of Teshuvah, the Virgo work is meticulous. Again, that meticulousness can be taken to an extreme where it's like you're overdoing it. And it's more of a control. But the meticulousness of Virgo is not wanting any stone to remain uncovered. Not wanting to miss any part of the mind that is mistaken. And so there's a deep joy and gratitude actually in being able to uncover, oh, here's a mistake in my thinking. Let me correct that. I mean, what's the path of correction here? And also, if we can recognize where there's stress or where there's confusion or where there's uncertainty, it means there's an insight and a realization relative to what's already true that we have not yet seen. It's a really important thing to understand. Thus, we need not be stressed about it. We can actually relax. I had a dream recently where I was shown myself resting on a couch, and I was told something like, trusting the opening of the heart. And when the heart opens, we can see things clearly. The metaphor of the heart opening, we can see with love. We can see with clarity, and then direction becomes clear. Right? The path of correction and where the healing is, where the teachings are. And if we don't yet see it, but we're present to something unresolved, the pathway is to cultivate more of a relationship with Creator and to trust. Say, okay, this is where healing gets to be. This is where there's great learning about to happen. I'm so grateful for that. And so we get to relax more in that faith that there's great learning, looking forward to our heart opening more, looking forward to abiding in deeper love. That's the basis for all clarity. Things that we do that are still kind of coming from the guilt. There's a teaching in the Course in Miracles too, that our actions, when they're ego-based, are either going to induce depression or guilt. Right? When we're denying something within ourselves, it's going to create depression. When we're acting out of anger or entitlement, it'll create guilt. When actions come from love, it does not induce any sense of guilt or depression. It's because it's coming from a place of direct understanding. And also, understanding only comes with peace. These are such beautiful teachings and such a wonderful honor for us to get to learn. What an honor to get to be here in these human bodies, in this life together. We all have our individual curriculum, but really we're all kind of figuring out the same stuff. And if we're together, regardless of the kind of relationship we all share with each other, whether we know each other, whether you're just watching this video, whether some of us are actually more involved with each other, you know, I'm speaking specifically to those here watching this channel or here with me right now, right? We're all in some level of relationship, but even more broadly with everyone on this planet. Whatever the level of human interaction there is, or whether you just know of this person or you heard their name before, whether they're not even alive in the body. It doesn't really matter. There's something shared between all of us. We're all learning the same thing. We are all learning the same thing, and in that sense, that Ram Dass teaching, we are all walking each other home. It couldn't be more real. And this time of Virgo, whew, it's so beautiful. It's just so holy. It's so profound. We get to just work on ourselves in the community space where we're all just doing this work together, and we're wanting to live in a good way. We're wanting to live in a loving way. We're wanting to clean up our act, to feel clean and clear in our conscience, to live in peace. There's that Shimshai song, one of my favorite songs. For when all we have is all we need, and the love of the Lord shall forever be, to do thy work and to live in peace, that the promise of heaven shall be with thee, that the promise of heaven shall be with thee. To do your work and live in peace. One of the greatest qualities of Virgo is to do your work and be in peace. The Tao Te Ching, it's like the noble one does nothing, but nothing remains undone. The doing that doesn't feel effortful and painful and stressful, it's just the next thing, the next moment. It's the calling of your soul curriculum. You're just led to it. It's what's now. Versus the non-noble one, I'm not sure what the word, the fool, is always doing, but everything remains incomplete. So, happy Ellul, everyone. Happy month of Virgo. I'll close with, as we are progressing through this month of Ellul, through the month of Virgo, we are going to have in the next few weeks the Sun coming to a square with Mars. Mars in Gemini, as Mars is stationing retrograde, and Mars will actually also be in an inconjunct to Pluto. Really powerful, amazing, deep soul work, lots of new information, perspectives calling for huge adjustments. And it's like, how do I do that? Well, you just do it. One of those, like, take it one step at a time, and you got the information you need. Just take the next step. That's what that's about. Man, a lot of content will be moving during that time. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to sharing more videos on that. And also around that time, I want to make this quick announcement as well. This is really exciting. Myself and 4 of my evolutionary astrology colleagues, and this is being organized and administered by my partner, Michelle. We've created the Association for Evolutionary Astrologers. This is a completely new thing. This is a new avenue and vehicle and pathway for us to share the teachings of evolutionary astrology with more souls in a way that is more accessible. So we're actually going to be starting a whole year, I think it's a 10-month class series that will include a class with live chart reading. And this class series will focus on Pluto because Pluto is super activated. Pluto is going to be moving into Aquarius and squaring the nodes throughout all of 2023. And with Mars stationing retrograde in conjunct to Pluto in Capricorn, it's really kickstarting that process. So this is a very Plutonian time. It's a great time to bring out these evolutionary astrology teachings and to just really share it in more accessible ways with more people. So we're going to actually have free intro class to this series talking about the history of evolutionary astrology, which is really beautiful, really amazing to learn about. We're going to introduce the series, talk about the core teachings of EA, introduce ourselves. Please check it out. I strongly invite you all to do it. It looks like Michelle has posted the link to the website that she created. It's a beautiful, beautiful website. Sign up for the free class next week. This is, I believe, September 3rd at 11 o'clock a.m. Pacific.